not have any access to the code to look at the screen on the side of the code to look at her face, the Aung San Suu Kyi face, because the judge said we are not permitted because we didn't have up to that time the power of attorney from her. So, but we can hear from the outside.
Now let's speak to Matthew Smith. He's the co-founder of Fortify Rights. Matthew, thanks so much for being with us. From a human rights perspective, how frightened are you by what you're seeing in Myanmar right now?
It's terribly frightening. You know, the people across the country are exercising their right to peaceful assembly and freedom of expression, and the authorities are opening fire. You know, as your viewers have seen, the mass arrests are increasing. The use of lethal force is escalating on a daily basis in various parts of the country. So it's certainly a crisis. I think it's important to note, however, that you know this is not, of course, just about State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi and her detention and the overthrow of her and President Win Myint. For millions upon millions of people in Myanmar, this is about their desire to not go back to direct military rule. They know what that's like, and they'll do anything to prevent it.
Absolutely. But in the meantime, something else that has been escalating is international pressure on the generals. And yet it seems it's only strengthening somehow the military's resolve here. Why?
Well, I think there have been some sanctions. I think a lot of governments, and certainly the UN Security Council has still failed to act. A lot of governments have still not taken as robust measures as we'd hope to see. I think there will be more in the near future coming. There are some key issues, for example, natural gas revenues. You know, Myanmar, the state of Myanmar benefits greatly from natural gas revenues, and the military junta is likely attempting to take over those revenues. And I think there are measures that governments can do to prevent that from happening, to make sure that those revenues are only used for example, for humanitarian purposes, and held in escrow or blocked until the junta restores the government. So these types of efforts are being made behind the scenes internationally, and we do hope that they're successful.
Okay, but what governments really need to up the pressure specifically in order to make any international pressure really work? For example, if the United States and Europe imposes sanctions, will it make any difference if China continues to do business with a military dictatorship that it will legitimately recognize as the government of Myanmar?
China's protection for the Myanmar military for many years has been a problem. I think it's important now for UN Security Council member states to be very active on this. The United States, as of today, is the president of the Security Council for the month of March. So France, for example, the UK, the US, and other members of the Security Council can and should apply bilateral pressure on the government of China to essentially incentivize Beijing to cooperate on this, perhaps in exchange for some other aspects that are of interest to Beijing. But I think the key is that there has to protection for what the military is doing in Myanmar right now has to come at a great cost for governments like China and Russia.
Do you worry, though, that the generals in charge now are so accustomed to being a pariah state that there could be potentially no sanctions that really would be strong enough to deter them from doing what they're doing, because they do truly believe in their cause here?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that the biggest sanction of all is coming from the people of Myanmar. The civil disobedience movement in the country has, in some ways, brought the functions of the state to a grinding halt. That, in many ways, is what we're seeing unfold on the streets of Myanmar. Millions of people not at their jobs, not in their homes, out on the street demanding democracy, demanding human rights. And so I think any international sanctions ideally would be calibrated to what the people of Myanmar are demanding. And what they're trying to do right now is essentially prevent the junta from being able to function. And it's brave, it's courageous. In some ways, it's very creative. There are a lot of creative things being done on the streets of Myanmar right now to that effect. And so I think the international response certainly needs to be calibrated to that.
Okay, Matthew Smith, great to have you. Thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.